Hello everybody and welcome to my channel. Whether you are brand new or returning, I'm so happy to be with you here today for a conversation. This is one that is so loud in me, so much so that this isn't just about this video. I have a few different videos, podcast episode, probably a blog post all coming out on this topic, but really fired up right now about this idea that has everything to do with grounding. If you've been around for a while, you know that grounding is a big topic of conversation and practice for me. If you haven't gotten your Deep Roots free guided meditation yet, I highly recommend doing that. Head over to upwardslopes.com/deep roots. That will give you an introduction to the work I do in grounding. Why grounding? Why grounding? Well, when we live in a world that in so many ways is essentially designed by powerful forces that don't have your best interest in mind, but have their own egoic centered interests in mind, well, these powerful forces don't want you grounded. They want you caught up in whatever chaos they have stirred up, because then you are at their mercy, you are serving them, and you aren't centered. You aren't focused. You aren't in tune with what actually matters. You aren't able to discern, to make skillful choices. You aren't able to make skillful choices for your own self, and you aren't able to make skillful choices for what this world actually needs. And the fact of the matter is, why I'm here doing what I'm doing, and a good chance that this is why you are tuned into my channel, is that we need people, more and more people, and that includes you, being ever more capable of making decisions, of taking action that matters, of being able to place your attention, your energy, your effort in the direction that matters, to heal what needs to be healed, to solve the problems that need to be solved, to create, to transform, to do all the beautiful things that we do in alignment with what matters. And as we're hanging out here in this new earth embodiment space, what we are doing is holding space for this way of being in the world where what matters, what is in alignment, well, if it's true for you and if it serves you, yourself, truly, not serving your ego, not serving your little desires and wants, not serving your ego, but serving your highest truth, well, then it's serving the planet, the whole web of life, in a way that serves. And again, I speak to this, like this is a sort of high spiritual teaching. And as someone who's very grounded in biology, is still somewhat new to the spiritual space. I still kind of hold that one, and, I like to speak about like hypothesis testing. I hold this as a hypothesis. Like, this is my working hypothesis that if I act in accordance for what is highest for myself, then I am acting in accordance for that which serves the highest good of this planet Earth. So, if you're more like grounded, earthly plane, biological, scientific-minded person, maybe that helps. Or maybe you're one of the lovely, very open, trusting spiritual people, and you're like, oh yeah, I've been tuned into that for a long time, whatever works for you. But the point being that we're moving away from this space that, it's me versus you. It's I either get to take care of myself or I get to do important work in the world. And I know that a lot of you that are watching this, there's a lot of people that hang out in the circles that I do, have lived in this world of self-sacrifice. Or another way to put it is that it's all about the work I do in the world, right? Everything, all that's worthy, all that's valuable is about my work in the world, right? That's sort of the narrative I was brought into the world with. And therefore, taking care of myself, tuning into what I actually need, that doesn't matter. So we're moving away from those narratives and we're moving into a narrative, and maybe, you hold space for the sort of spiritual belief that it already exists and we're moving more fully into it. Or maybe you hold this sort of spiritual mindset that's like, we get to actively create this world. Whatever, space you hold there, it doesn't matter. But hanging out in this space, and this is the invitation, a deep, heart-centered invitation I bring to you to hang out in this space with me. That is actively co-creating this way of being where we are in tune with self. We are in tune with the world that we are all part of. And as we walk along this discernment path, it doesn't really matter so much. The highest truth is, am I turned inward and my attention is inward on self because that's what's calling? Is my attention outward, serving spaces outside of self because that's truly what's calling? Hanging out in this space where, it doesn't really matter. What matters is this is truly what is calling to you. And if you follow that, then really it's all the same. We're all serving this same big web of life that we are all just one part of. Fun space to be. So I want to turn this back to grounding. And again, this is a conversation that's bigger than like a 30-minute YouTube video. So make sure you're connected in the different spaces that I'm in. Subscribe to this channel, subscribe to my podcast. On the newsletter is the best way to just be tuned into everything. This topic of grounding. Because if we're going to do this, if we're going to do all these things that I'm talking about, there is this need to be grounded. And it's a word that's thrown around all the time. And I want to have a focused conversation on what that means. What does it actually mean to be grounded? And I want to start this conversation by, inviting you to turn inward. Really feel into this, like feeling into your body. What does it feel like to be grounded? The way I teach this is to feel your feet on the floor, find your seat in the chair, whatever's relevant to connect you to the physical surface holding you. From there, you can feel into your body, to that physical connection to the surface, this physical surface, this ground that is holding you in this moment. And from this space, maybe you let your awareness descend a little bit further down into the earth, knowing that this ground, this earth, is holding you. We can also play around with grounding with our breath. So many of us are kind of stuck in this breathing pattern. We're just breathing up in our heads, right? So if I cue you to tune into your breath, just holding some awareness for where you go. Do you breathe in through your nose and feel that in the bridge of your nose, kind of up in this area? We can take deep breaths down into self where we're breathing deeper and deeper into self. So with the first breath, you might just find your breath wherever it is in your body. For a second breath, maybe you breathe down into your chest, really feeling into that physical expansion of your chest, feeling into that physical expansion of your ribs. Maybe you just need one breath here. Maybe you need 10 breaths here. Then from here, maybe we breathe a little bit deeper, down into your abdomen. Maybe you breathe all the way down into your roots, so into that physical connection with the surface holding you, those floorboards, the floor, the chair, whatever it is. So in this way, we can embody this grounded state. We can call upon grounding, feeling that ground beneath you. A powerful practice, one I invite you to do, given the state of our world. Do it all the time. As you're moving through life, through your day, give yourself several times to do this practice intentionally. Give yourself a minute or 10 minutes. Take those deep breaths into self as you feel yourself physically on this ground you sit or stand on. As you're out walking through life, you're driving your car, you're at work, or you're picking your kids up from school, wherever you are, you're moving through life. Get in the habit of just taking those deep breaths. And as you do this over time, you'll build up that capacity to find your grounding just like that. I was facilitating my circle, my New Earth priestessing circle today. And often when I lead that circle, we spend a lot of time, really taking people into a grounded space. And that's really been the focus. We're doing all sorts of things in that circle, but one thing that was really loud for me when I started facilitating that circle, and something that's been getting louder and louder, that has stayed loud, is keep guiding them into grounding. Keep bringing through these grounding practices. So at this point, we spent, I don't know how much time, consciously, creating these deep root systems down in the earth. We are grounding into connection with self, into connection with planet Earth. We've spent so much time doing this. So then today I'm facilitating circle, and we're kind of running out of time. And there's a powerful practice that I wanted to bring through that was really speaking loud, like it was already happening in my body. And it had to do with alchemizing a fear. So fear, hey, we store a lot of fears deep down in our body. So sometimes kind of root, first, second chakra area is where we store a lot of fear. And there's a lot of fear in the world right now. And oftentimes I'm going through life and fear will arise. And I'm I don't want to be present to fear. So I'm going to push that away. Well, when we do that, it doesn't often just go away. And oftentimes we end up storing it in our bodies. So I'm in circle and I start to feel something rising in my body, sensation rising up from my root. And I know what caused it because there was a woman speaking to fear. And so it started rising up. But I'm looking at the time I know we need to work with this, but I don't have time to lead us through a whole practice of grounding. We've got 3 minutes to do this. So I did is I took a chance and I'm hey guys, find your grounding. Whatever you've got, tap in, find your grounding. You grounded, good. Here's what we're gonna do. And from that space, we just let the fear rise up. We brought our consciousness to it to the degree that served. So holding that intention to bring your consciousness to it in a way that serves. We let it rise up. We healed what needed to be healed, alchemized what needed to be alchemized, held the door open for if there was more work to be done, to go continue to work with that later. But I bring this story to you because what I want to speak to is grounding is something to cultivate. And I spend so much time, whether I'm here on YouTube or whether I'm blogging or writing my books or whatever I'm doing, my little Instagram videos that I bring through, I'm constantly reminding people to do these grounding practices because the more we do it, the more we simply feel grounded as we move through life. And when big things happen, like when fear rises, we are able to hold that. We can just do it. We can stay grounded, and we can hold the powerful emotions, the powerful experiences that are here to be felt, that are here to be worked with. So in this way, what is grounding? What really is grounding? There's all these different ways we can speak to it. Certainly a nuanced conversation, but I think the most powerful, important thing to speak to when we're talking about grounding is your ability to stay standing or seated physically, your ability to be present with what is here. So, the flip side of this is losing your grounding, becoming ungrounded, is when we're sort of, our knees are taken out from underneath us, and that falling, right? That falling away, that being taken away. So, and I invite you to feel into this, right? Feel into a grounded state. You are able to hold what is here. Whatever comes your way, you are grounded and you can hold what is here. So you can think of that beautiful tree, whatever tree comes to mind, outside my window. If you know me, it's the ponderosas. I was just up in Northern California with the redwoods. So whatever powerful tree you can bring to mind, those roots connected into the earth, grounded, able to hold that tall tree with all its branches. And then the wind comes in and knocks it around, or rain comes in, or snow comes in, or blazing sun comes in. And all the while that tree is still standing. All the while that tree is still holding all of it. As life comes in and does what it's going to do, that tree is still there standing. So that's what I'm talking about grounding. I want to get a little bit more technical here. What are we really grounding into? I'm an engineer, right? Classically trained as an engineer. So I think about my circuits classes every time we talk about grounding. And I think about one way, grounding is a very generalized, you build a circuit, and ultimately it doesn't really matter how you ground. It's just that it grounds, then you are grounded. I remember asking questions to my professor, being like, can you get a little bit more clear on the mechanisms of what's actually happening here? It's like, no, don't worry about it. Just make sure you have your ground. So there's that piece, but then there's the piece no, I want to be technical. What are we grounding into here? What are we grounding into? And that's a question that I want to leave a little space, for the answers to come into you. What are you grounding into? What is it that holds you? What is it that holds you as you stay standing, as you stay present, focused, here, I'm grounded? What is it that holds you? I know for me and what I teach, it's earth, right? It's the ground we stand on. And getting even more technical, well, yes, it's the physical earth herself, this planet Earth, right? That's why I cue you in my meditations and practices to feel physically into that ground beneath you. Bring to mind the dirt, the rocks, the roots, the soil, the ground that you stand on. And also, it's you, it's your body, because you are earth. So yes, find that grounding down in the earth. Also, does it serve to find that grounding in self? Because yes, you are earth herself. And no right or wrong way to do that. Maybe there's some wrong ways to do that. Maybe I should be more careful with my words there. There's some wrong ways, I would say, to practice grounding. But we don't have to get this right. There's no one right way to do it. The way that is most right is the way that works for you. So where do you find your grounding? Now I want to weave in one other piece here, and I made a whole YouTube video on this. I made a YouTube video last week or the week before, I tried to sit down and record a video like this for you. And it was the week right after inauguration, and I just couldn't. I couldn't sit inside, be grounded enough to come to you like this because I was on fire. Grief, outrage, it was moving through me, and I was a ball of fire. And I talk about working with fire a lot. I talk about it a lot for us being a 7X Sagittarius and living on a landscape that's just been ravaged by one forest fire after the next. Like, I've came into this world with some sort of karmic something with fire, and work a lot with fire, and so teach a lot with how to deal with fiery states. And the thing is, as I experienced and I speak to a lot, once I finally get this book done, you'll get to hear the full story. But my path into embodiment, right, was one completely overwhelmed by fire. And when I found myself in this state, just super fiery, right? So we can think of anxiety. Anxiety is kind of the typical term one might use for this state, but I don't like to use the word anxiety because it's not the most skillful, it's not the most technical. But if anxiety helps you kind of feel into those fiery sensations and self, I certainly experienced a lot of anxiety, but I experienced fire, like raging through me all the time, and completely lost my grounding, completely lost any sort of being able to hold myself in this world, just completely taken over by emotion. Right, when this happened to me, this was during the pandemic. It was like my whole life had fallen apart, crumbled, and it was a life that, I lived in the corporate world. I had my partner, and we were going to get married. Like, everything was building and in the way things are supposed to. But God, it was so out of alignment. So it took everything I had to hold all of that together. And then it finally broke at the same time the pandemic hit. And so my whole world, my whole being went up in flames. Talk about ungrounded. What do you do? What do you do when you cannot find your grounding? What do you do when all the traditional techniques don't work? This is when we get creative. Now I talk about my story as an ultra runner. Back in the rock climbing, ultra running are big parts of my life. And it's at this point when rock climbing was taken away from me. Right? This is the space where I felt the most ungrounded, right? Where the panic attacks, the anxiety was the worst. Rock climbing completely taken away from me. I could not stay grounded there. So I tried to do yoga, I tried to meditate, right? These are the more traditional ways that we do things. And I was told that there I would heal, I would feel grounded, I would feel safe. And it wasn't the case for me. It actually made things worse trying to get myself on a rubber mat and move and breathe. Just no matter what people told me, I could not find any sort of grounding. Well, what happened? What happened is I was training for a 100-mile ultra marathon. Wild. Who does that? Definitely not recommending anyone do this. It's an insane thing to do, but for whatever reason, I'm called to it. I was called to it then. I was called to it after that. It's happening again. I'm training for another 100 marathons. Wild. I don't know why I do this thing, but it does something that is in alignment for me. And trust me when I say I'm in deep asking, really? Really? I'm doing this again? Yes, it serves still. Okay. And so I'm training for my first 100-mile marathon. And what that means is that every single day, or most days, not every day, you need your rest. I'm getting out on the trails. And I'm moving my body. And as I'm moving my body, my feet are in connection to dirt, rock. I'm in the forest. The mountains are around me. I am immersed in nature. I am with nature. Mother Earth in her natural forms. And I'm out there and I'm moving and I'm breathing. It's one day I still have the vision in my mind so clearly. I'm like running along on the trails, kind of the high desert landscape out near Santa Fe. So high desert, dry dirt. There's cactus, there's juniper, there's piñon pine. The Rio Grande is flowing right next to me. I'm out there running, moving, breathing. And I've been in this state of just anxiety and panic for months and months and months. Nothing I did could get me out of it. I'm running and I'm moving along, and all of a sudden it hits me. I'm like, oh, in this moment, I feel okay. In this moment, I'm present. I'm present in my body. I'm connected to the ground beneath me. I'm connected to what's around me. I feel grounded. I finally feel grounded. And here I am out trail running, training for a 100-miler. Again, nobody's going to teach you that that's the path to grounding. But what I am going to teach you is that sometimes we have to get creative. That there's no clear, structured, validated way to help you always find your grounding. Sometimes what helps in one moment isn't going to help you in another moment. These days, most days, I can drop into a stillness practice, breathe deeply down into self, maybe envision that connection with the earth below me, and that helps. And then there are days where life is too much and it fuels the flames within me, and I have to go run up the switchbacks up my backyard mountain. That's just a total burn scar at that point, and I have to go out and be with the skeletons of the ponderosas. And as I'm moving and breathing and connected with fire in that way, here I can actually find my grounding. Again, I have another video, I'll link it below. I came to you from the trails, directly from that experience, to talk to it more. So if you want a more like firsthand, me being in it kind of thing, there's that video for you. But I bring this to you today because, I want to have a more expanded conversation of grounding. Again, as everything happens in our world, things get oversimplified, and our minds love these easy, 3-5 step processes that guarantee results. And when we're in the embodiment world, that's just BS. Yes, there are processes that tend to be more helpful than others more of the time. There are practices out there that just tend to be terrible and can be harmful more often than they are helpful. So be discerning about who you are listening to, who is teaching you. Learn to be discerning, right? That's really what we're doing here. We're doing a lot of things here, but discernment being such a powerful piece. That discernment, what truly serves you, what practices, what teachings actually work for you, what is helpful, staying away from what is harmful, knowing that what is serving you means that you are more fully able to show up for this world that we are all part of, to shine more light, more love out into the world, to heal what needs to be healed, to solve those big problems, to innovate in the way that actually serves. This is our playground here, you guys. I talk about it as a playground, right? I talk about it as a playground because as a little kid, you show up to the playground and there's all these different things you can do, right? And as you move about through the playground. You're having fun. You're also sometimes getting knocked down. You're learning. It's experiencing life. And that's really all we're doing here. We're experiencing life as we're doing our best to make this world a better place. That's what we're doing here, in case you needed a reminder. Alrighty, team, I'm going to leave us there today. As always, if you haven't yet, make sure you hit that subscribe button, that like button. Leave a comment if anything has sparked something in you. If you have any questions, anything you want me to dive deeper into. Make sure you're signed up for my newsletter, The Mountain Mystic. You can do that at upwardslopes.com. Head over there, you'll get a free meditation or two to bring you into this work. Get my ebook if you haven't yet. That'll bring you so much more about my story, why I do what I do, how I got here on this crazy path away from biomedical engineering to embodied spirituality. Yeah, you'll find the links below. You'll find everything you need at upwardslopes.com. Thank you so much for tuning in with me today. Do those grounding practices. If you want to get fancy with it, go to my website, get those grounding practices. Make sure you're subscribed here. Look out for the circles that I'll be bringing you all. I don't know if I mentioned that in this video. I talked about the New Earth circle I've been holding, and it is really loud for me to start bringing circles to you, to the public. So look out for that. Make sure you're on the newsletter so you hear about that. Okay. All the things. Make sure you're connected. Thanks for joining me today, and I look forward to catching you next time.